don't remember the name of the building. Maybe it didn't have one. Maybe it never needed one. It was just there, sitting in that part of town where the maps start to lose confidence, between a bus depot and a collapsed parking garage, like someone dropped a concrete monolith into a place. Memory forgot. The man who called me never gave his name, just said, "We received your resume, and we'd like to offer you a position." He didn't say for what, only that the address was enclosed, and that I should come in the morning, alone, and bring a pen. I thought it was a scam, but when I searched the address, nothing came up. No listing, no reviews, just a blank square on the map, with coordinates that looped if you zoomed too far in. I took it as a glitch. Everything glitches now. Why not job listings too? When I arrived, the building seemed taller than it looked on satellite view. It had no signage, no windows, just a single steel door with a keypad. The moment I stepped onto the first concrete step, the door unlocked with a click and opened by itself. A woman stood just inside. She wore a gray uniform with no insignia, no expression, and eyes that didn't reflect light. She didn't speak, just nodded once, and gestured down a narrow corridor. I followed. The lights buzzed softly, flickering like they were fighting against something. The air felt dry, but heavy, like it had been filtered too many times through too many lungs. At the end of the hallway, another door. No handle, no label. It slid open when we approached. Inside sat a man in a chair, behind a desk. He had paper skin, and hands that looked too clean to be real, like they'd been polished smooth. He pushed a sheet of paper toward me and said, "Please read this carefully." I read it. It was one sentence. I voluntarily agreed to employment under the custodial provisions of the Archive of the Disappeared and relinquish all rights to external memory and direction during the course of tenure. I asked what external memory meant. He said, "You'll understand soon," and smiled, like that was supposed to help. I signed, because what else do you do when you're 37, jobless, and no one remembers your birthday anymore? I signed, and he nodded and said, "This way, please. Your term begins now." I tried to ask how long the term was, but he had already stood up. And the woman in gray was waiting at the door again. Her hand open for my phone. I hesitated, then gave it to her. She placed it in a black tray and pressed a button. It dissolved, not burned, not crumbled, just dissolved, like sugar in water. I didn't ask questions after that. They gave me a uniform, gray like hers. They gave me a number, not a name, and led me into the archive. The archive was endless, not metaphorically, not poetically, endless like a place designed without edges. I would turn corners that bent into new floors, descend stairwells that didn't remember where they started, and open doors that didn't lead the same place twice. My section was labeled a 7. No meaning, no acronym, just a stencil above a red-framed hallway. The walls were concrete, the floor dull vinyl that muffled footsteps. The lighting overhead flickered when you looked directly at it, but remained steady in your peripheral vision. I was not alone, but I rarely saw anyone. Sometimes I'd pass others in the hall, gray uniforms, expressionless faces. They walked quickly and with purpose, like they knew the rules, like they had stopped asking what the rules were. My first assignment was a room filled with file drawers, metal cabinets that stretched from floor to ceiling. Some were locked, some opened on their own. Each drawer held folders, and each folder held a name, and sometimes a story. The first one I opened was blank. Just a name. Marion Fletcher. Born 1969. Status. Pending. I turned the page. There was no page. The second folder had 4 sheets, typed in different fonts. One was a police report from 1993. Missing person. Last seen walking home from school. No witnesses. The 4th page was a note, scribbled in pencil. Not my face. Not my shoes. He said I wasn't Marion. So I stopped speaking. I closed the folder and placed it in bin 7. I had been told bin 7 means unresolved. Bin 3 means resolved. Bin 1 is for curator review. I asked, what makes a case resolved? They said, you'll know, or you won't. And if you don't, you'll forget you asked. I don't remember who told me that. On day 4, a drawer opened by itself. No sound. Just a slow mechanical slide, as if inviting me. The folder inside was older, faded, edges curled like it had been underwater. The name was smudged, but the photo was intact. A man in a winter coat, looking directly at the camera. Eyes too wide, mouth slightly parted. Behind him, a shadow. Long, wrong. The report said he had walked into a hospital, then walked out again. 5 minutes later, no one had seen him since. The hospital had no record of his visit. I placed it in bin 1. I didn't know why, but it felt like something someone needed to see. Someone who wasn't me. That night, I heard breathing. Not mine, not nearby, but inside the ventilation, like something big, curled up, waiting. On day 7, I found a folder with no text, just 10 photographs. The first was a house, 2 stories, white paint, a dead tree in the yard. The second was the same house, but the tree was gone. The third, the house had 1 window boarded. By the 7th photo, the house had no doors, no roof, no ground beneath it. Just black around its foundation, like it was floating or sinking. The last 3 photos were blank. But when I touched the last one, I remembered something I hadn't known I forgot. The street I grew up on. The bend in the road before the cul-de-sac. How one house had never been occupied, but the porch light was always on. I put the folder in bin 1. I didn't want to know more. Some knowledge here felt sticky, like if you held it too long, it'd stick to your skin, slide down your spine, make a home behind your eyes. On day 8, my uniform had a new pocket. I didn't sew it. I didn't ask for it. It was just there, deep, empty, waiting. When I told the woman at registration, she said, sometimes storage adapts. Don't store anything living. I laughed. She didn't. The corridors began changing. I would take the same left turn, and the lighting would be different. Once it was completely dark, but I kept walking because the air still moved, and the movement meant the hallway was real. When I got to the other side, the hallway was numbered B5. I worked in a 7, but my access card still worked, so I stepped inside. B5 was colder, and the folders were handwritten. Old cursive, ink that bled. Papers folded in strange ways. Triangles, hexagons. One was just a tightly rolled tube stuffed in a rubber hose. I opened it and found a single sentence in a child's handwriting. "He has your shoes now, so you don't need to run." I didn't sleep that night. By the second week, time became unreliable. There were no windows, no clocks, and the lighting never changed. I would eat, work, rest, then return. But the cycle felt artificial, like someone had programmed days to blur. There were no weekends, just instructions left in my locker. Process shelf, 82. Verify section 14. Resort anomalous entries. Once I found a folder with my name, but the birth date was wrong. So I told myself it wasn't me. I placed it in bin 3. But when I checked the bin later, it was gone. I started writing small notes to myself. Just simple things. "You already checked this drawer? You ate today. Don't believe the elevator voice." Because yes, the elevator sometimes spoke. It had a panel, but no buttons. Just a smooth surface that pulsed when touched. Once it whispered, "Do you want to remember, or do you want to finish?" I didn't answer. But the next day, I was moved to a different floor. This one had no designation, just a symbol etched above the door. A circle with a vertical slash. The folders here were colder. Not temperature cold, but emotionally empty. Some were just names. No history, no photos, no context. But every time I opened one, I felt like I'd heard that name whispered behind me the day before. Sometimes I would feel watched. And once, I turned too quickly and saw something just out of phase. Not a person, not even a shape, just the suggestion of something with intent. On day 17, someone tried to speak to me. A voice came from the end of the hallway. Soft. Male. Unsure. Hey, do you know where the exit is?" They moved me. I wasn't supposed to be on this level. I stopped. I wasn't allowed to speak about the archive. But this didn't feel like speaking about the archive. It felt like survival. So I turned the corner, and the hallway was empty. The voice returned. Closer. "Hey, you saw my file, didn't you? Was it accurate? Am I still me?" Then laughter. Soft. Wet. Something dragging across metal. I walked away. I walked fast. I didn't look back. Not because I was brave, but because something inside me said, "If you look back, you'll be seen too clearly." I don't know what day it is now. Maybe day 30. Maybe I've been here a year. My uniform has new symbols stitched into the collar. No one added them, but everyone with them seems to be moved up, closer to the curator level, closer to whatever sits above this. There is a room now that wasn't there before. Room 101. But it's not between room 100 and 102. It's down a separate hall, past a red cord, past a mirror that doesn't show your face, only your back. Inside room 101, the folders are breathing. Some of them beat, like hearts. I've only been allowed in twice. Both times. I had to wear gloves. Both times. I came out with a nosebleed, and words in my notebook that I didn't write. Once, I woke up in my quarters, with a note tucked into my boot. It said, You left something open, and now it remembers you. I burned the note, but the smell of it followed me for days. They told me not to sleep near Section D. They said the walls there dream out loud. But one night, after I worked too long, I dozed off in the corner between two filing towers. When I woke up, my shoes were gone, but something had tucked a new pair under my legs, identical to mine, but newer, cleaner, and the soles were marked with the word remain. My socks were damp, like I had walked through something, but there were no puddles nearby, and no scent. I found a file that day, with no name, but a handprint in the center, human, small, burned into the page. Beneath it were scattered notes, half legible, some typed, some scribbled. You cannot misfile what was never documented. She left her shadow behind the first time. It came back looking for skin. Page count does not equal content. Repeat that. Repeat that. Repeat that. I showed it to a supervisor, but they didn't react. Just blinked slowly and said, "Folder reassigned. This never entered the system. You've been working ahead of schedule." I didn't know there was a schedule. The archive began speaking to me, not in words, but in repetitions. Certain drawers would open again and again, showing me the same file, same contents, but slightly changed. A name would shift, a photo would reverse, a case marked closed, now marked returning. I started marking my hands with pen, 1 dot for every time a file repeated. By the end of the week, my hands were almost black. I washed them, but the ink came back while I slept. Eventually, I found a new drawer, marked with a spiral symbol I hadn't seen before. Inside was a tape recorder, old, dusty, but humming with energy. I played it. A woman's voice. I don't remember how long I've been down here, but my fingers don't hurt anymore. That's how, when the filing stops feeling like filing and starts feeling like remembering. There's a room on floor -4. They won't tell you how to find it, but it will appear when your reflection doesn't follow you out of the restroom. If you find that door, close it behind you. Whatever happens, close it. The recording ended with silence, then a slow exhale, as if the tape itself had breath. The next day, I looked for a restroom with no mirrors. I found 3. The 4th had a mirror that showed me blinking 2 seconds late. I walked backward out the door. My reflection didn't follow. It just stood there, hands still, face neutral, no curiosity. A door appeared to my right. Not dramatic, just present. I opened it and stepped into cold. Floor -4 isn't listed on any documents, but it's built like the others. Only tighter, darker. Everything hums louder, like the building is nervous or waiting. There were no files, just metal shelves, holding objects, each labeled with a name and a date. A ring, a paper crane, a melted key, a child's tooth, a cassette, a crumpled train ticket with the edges burned off. I didn't touch anything, but as I walked, I began to feel pieces of myself becoming lighter, like memories were bleeding out of me. Voluntarily, quietly, I felt the name of my elementary school float away, the color of my childhood bike, the smell of my grandfather's coat. Gone? Not painful, just replaced by dust. In the last room, I saw myself. Not a mirror, not a reflection, but me, in another uniform. Older, eyes dulled. Placing an item on a shelf. It was a notebook. My notebook. The one I kept in my locker, with the little drawings in the corners. He, me, the other, closed the door, turned, and walked away without noticing me. I left the floor quickly. I don't remember how I found my quarters, but the door opened for me, and when I checked my locker, the notebook was still there, but the last 5 pages were torn out. Now my dreams have changed. I used to dream of roads, weather, people whose names I didn't remember. Now I dream of drawers that breathe, and lists of names that rearrange themselves until they spell things like stay, remember, replace, return. I haven't spoken in days, maybe weeks. I don't know if anyone else does either. I don't know if sound still works here, but I hear the lights whisper sometimes. They hum in rhythm, and the rhythm feels like language. Someone scratched something into the ceiling of my room. I didn't see it before. It says, if they archive your voice, you will never be silent again. I haven't spoken since I was promoted. No one said anything. I just woke up one day, and my collar had a new thread. Silver. Fine. And my assignments were different. Now I process red folders. They're hotter, not temperature, but emotion. Opening them feels like being remembered by something that was trying to forget you. They pulse, they hum, and sometimes when I open them, my fingertips go numb. They contain no names, just incidents. A child who walked into a reflection and didn't come back out. A woman who dreamed her teeth into someone else's mouth. A town that existed only during leap years. A man who was buried, but kept writing postcards from a place called Level 7. I don't file them, I just read them, and forget them, until I don't. Sometimes the folders open themselves, and the contents whisper, you came here to leave, but you stayed to listen. I was called to the curator's level. No warning. Just a note in my locker that said, you're expected. Bring nothing but your hands. The elevator that took me there didn't move. I stepped inside. The lights dimmed. And when the doors opened, I was no longer in the same building. Or maybe I was in a part of the building that forgot the rest existed. The hallway was lined with glass walls. Inside each glass room, a person sat, some awake, some asleep, some watching nothing with such intensity. It hurt to look at them. Each had a folder on their lap, but none of them turned the pages. I passed 20 rooms, 30, 40, each identical, each silent. At the end was a door, matte black, with a metal plaque that said, Integration. The handle was warm. Inside sat the curator. Same as before, or maybe not. His face didn't resolve. Like a memory someone tried to paint from description. He gestured for me to sit. His desk was empty. No files. No papers. Just a small silver mirror turned to face me. He said, You've reached the final phase. You may choose. I said nothing. He continued, You have done what was asked. You have not broken protocol. You have not attempted escape. You have remembered only what was permitted. I asked, What happens now? he said. Now you must decide. Are you a worker, or are you an entry? I asked. What's the difference? He said. A worker files stories. An entry becomes one. I said, what does that mean? He paused, then said, it means you may leave, if you can still define yourself without this place. But if you cannot, you will remain, and others will read you. He placed 2 folders on the desk. One had my name, and smelled faintly like cedar. The other had no name, but pulsed under the light. I reached for the nameless one, but he stopped me. He said, once chosen, it cannot be unread. Do you understand? I nodded. I don't know why. He slid the folder to me. It opened itself. Inside, pages I had written, but never remembered writing. Dreams, memories, conversations that never happened. Sketches of rooms I had never been inside, but had seen in my sleep. On the final page, a photo of me, taken from behind, walking into the archive. My reflection in the glass door was smiling, but I hadn't been that day. I closed the folder. He asked, do you accept this as your narrative? I said, I don't know. He said, that is enough. He took the folder back, placed it in a drawer, and locked it with a key shaped like the number 7. Then he stood and pointed behind me. A door had appeared, wooden, simple, with a coat hook beside it. On the hook, my jacket, from the first day I arrived. I hadn't seen it since. I walked to the door. I touched the handle and felt nothing. I looked back. The curator was gone. So was the room. Just me and a choice. I opened the door. Outside. Sunlight. Real or simulated? I didn't know. But my hands felt heavier, like I carried something invisible now. No one recognized me on the street, but I didn't expect them to. I walked past places I used to know. They looked older, like they had moved on without me. I checked my phone. I didn't have one. I checked my wallet. It had money, but the faces were different. I sat in a cafe, ordered tea. No one questioned me. But when I looked at the sugar packet, it had my name on it. I left the cafe. I live in a small apartment now. I don't work. But sometimes letters arrive. No return address. Just files. Cases. Names I don't recognize. But I open them. I read them. And I understand where they go. My closet has a gray uniform. Neatly pressed. Never dusty. Once a month. I dream of the archive, but the corridors are wider now, and the folders are blank. Sometimes I hear someone calling from the ventilation, but the voice is always mine. I don't know if I ever left, or if this is the section for integration outcomes. But each morning, when I wake up, there's a new note under my pillow, typed, unsigned. You are remembered. You are recorded. You are never lost. I place each note in a drawer under my bed. It's getting full, but I haven't stopped yet. Maybe one day, someone will find that drawer and read me, and maybe that will be enough.